you're going to have more carbohydrates that are going to break down earlier on in your intestinal tract that are going to absorb more through the small intestine. So that's going to be primarily the simple carbohydrates. Starches tend to, because they're going to be broken down farther along your digestive tract. And so the tendency is, again, if you are slow moving, if you are hypothyroid, if things aren't moving in the appropriate way, then limit those kind of foods until you get things moving. And then that's also making sure that you're producing ample energy to support that to support metabolism. So that, again, eating enough, taking care of your stress, eating carrot salad, anything that's going to support GI health is going to essentially help lower histamine.
I'm Kitty Blomfield, co-founder of New Strength and Saturée, creator of pro-metabolic food supplements and seriously saturated skincare. And today I'm joined by our good friend, Kate Deering. Kate, welcome back.
Always a pleasure to come and spend time with you. Just like my sister from another country.
I know. One day.
One day.
To visit Kate.
Yeah.
Craig and
I talk about you enough that I'm like, I've never met her, but I feel like we're sisters.
We are. It's so good.
It is.
We're a bit loose cannons back in the day, weren't we? We would have totally partied together, I think.
Oh, we would have been very good friends. We would have been very close, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, too funny.
Okay. Yes.
Not so much anymore. We don't drink and take the drugs like we used to.
No, we're very wholesome people now.
We are.
I'm like in bed by 9:30. I'm like, oh, turn everything off. Yeah. I mean, it's so weird.
Yeah, I'm like, if Craig's ever like, let's watch a movie at 8 p.m. I'm like, fuck no. We'd never start a movie at 8 p.m. Are you kidding? Mm-hmm. Never.
Well, sometimes I'll fall asleep on the couch and I'll wake up and I'm like, it's 10:45. Oh my gosh, and I panic a little bit and I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm like, it's going to be okay. But, I like my sleep cycles.
Same. And food. Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, today we thought we'd do what were we saying it was going to be? Coffee talk.
Well, yeah, people have coffee talk. That's a New York thing. That's what they say. And so I thought we would have carrot talk, because normally when Kitty and I talk, we're both usually eating a carrot salad. We're like, what do you got in your carrot salad? So we're not going to eat it in front of you today, although we could. So I thought it would be carrot talk.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, without the carrots today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
no carrot. Yeah, I already ate it. So
yeah. All right. So we've got some questions.
I like that.
Number one, any benefit of eating protein custard before bed? Maxine burn dessert protein. Should we look at what's in it? I'm sure it's full of dog shit.
Yeah. I did. And just FYI, these are questions that people sent to me. So hopefully those people listen, I'll send that out. But I did look it up. And you want to look it up too. It's primarily whey protein. That's the protein that's in those things. And I think it's a high protein sold as like a fat burning bar. Okay, let's just first start. These things are complete crap and garbage. And they're marketing.
Look at what's in it,
right? And there's no food that you can eat that's just going to rev up your fat burning. However, now, scientifically speaking, protein takes more energy to break down if you're using it as energy. But I wouldn't eat a whey protein right before bed. If I was going to consume any sort of protein, right, we would do casein protein or gelatin, because actually they're going to help actually support sleep, because casein is a slower release protein and the gelatin has glycine in that. It's really supportive to sleep. So, but you kind of want carbs and a little fat too before you go to bed. I wouldn't consume a high amount of protein, like a moderate amount, but for the most part, that's why ice cream is such a good food. So those bars in particular would not be something I would recommend for you to have prior or eat at all, to be honest.
Yeah, just look. I can't see the ingredients. Let me
You got to go down. I think if you like scroll down, and then I peeked on them, and there was like ingredients, and there was like 2 different types of whey protein. You can read them off.
I'm trying to like see the back of the.
I forget. Maxine's burn.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Burn custard.
Yeah. There you go. Burn bars.
Why can't I see the back?
You gotta like go down, go to
ingredients.
Go to the ingredients.
Just says the protein blend, and then doesn't have the full ingredients. That's weird. Nutrition information.
Calcium.
Can you
has some
see
level
it?
of calcium. Yeah, green coffee extract, L-carnitine, choline, and inositol, green tea, dairy calcium. No, it doesn't have the other binders and
Yeah.
fillers.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of shit in it. Yeah,
So
get it plain. Just obviously, Saturée, clean casein, 100%.
that would be a plug.
Said.
But
Yeah,
the
plug.
bottom line is, yeah, I mean, whey protein, if you're going to consume it, it's best because it's such a quick absorbing protein to have it post workout. But it can be really GI irritating to a lot of people. So from kind of where we're coming from, since this kind of space, we really want to be kind to our digestive system and not give it a lot of crap that's going to be irritating. It's just a food I would not consume.
It's just clever marketing, hey?
It's great marketing, right? Marketing, most of the health industry is marketing. That's why we're not any healthier than we were 50 years ago, right? I mean, sadly, that it is a lot of great marketing, and it's a very emotional purchase for most people, and that's why it's very profitable.
All right, number 2. Before finding the pro-metabolic whey, I had an ablation. Should I be concerned about high iron, and what can I do about it?
Yeah, so this individual obviously had an endometrial ablation, so they kind of cut out part of your.
I think they burn it. Don't they? Burn the...
No, they cut some out from what, or they might use like a laser kind of to burn. Yeah. Yes, but either way, you have a thick lining and you have a heavy period, and that's why they're doing it. But the question was really a little bit confusing. I actually asked the lady that sent this to me, and I was like, high iron in a woman is usually going to accumulate post you not having your period, because at that point in time, your period is a time where you release iron. And so I guess the thought was, if I'm going to have less heavy periods, will I start absorbing more iron or keeping more? You will. But on some level, if you have really heavy periods, I mean, that's why so many ladies become anemic, because they are releasing too much. So that wouldn't be really a concern. But the more concern is, yes, as you get older, you are going to keep more iron because you don't have your period to get rid of it. Like you excrete like a milligram per day. And, technically you're probably only absorbing a couple milligrams. But as you age, you don't need as much. And so that's why it's usually recommended that if you're going to have like your meat, or you're going to consume high iron foods, to have it something with a coffee, so it can inhibit some of the iron absorption. Of course, again, if you are low iron, don't do that. You might need additional, and then you would have it with something like orange juice to increase the absorption. But I don't think that would create a problem.
It's amazing, like the amount of women that come into our program who've had ablations. This doesn't obviously fix the actual issue.
Right. I mean, you're having a heavy period for a reason, right? And sadly, that's not usually what they do to you. They're not trying to figure out your health, your nutrition, and why that's happening, right? And it's usually because an excess of estrogen. So why is that happening? And that's kind of what you have to get to. And usually if you can regulate someone and get their blood sugar regulated, you get them sleeping better, you get their cycles better, that tends, and a lot of women, what I find too, and I'm going to throw this out there, is if they get on proper thyroid medication, that can be completely rectified quickly. But again, not a doctor, just something I've noticed.
Yeah. And do the basics first.
And still do the basics. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just change nothing and take thyroid. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. We have to put that in there.
That's it. Yeah. That's the disclaimer.
Yeah. Any ideas on histamine support?
Sorry. Histamine. So obviously there's a lot of, your body produces it. The mast cells produce it. The parietal cells will produce it. So produced from your stomach acid. Food has it. So depending on what's happening to someone, but there's a lot of reasons why somebody might have excess histamine. And it could be they can't break it down. So I think it's DAO is the enzyme that breaks down histamine. And so it's very copper dependent. So if somebody has a low copper diet might not be producing the enzyme to break down. And I also believe it needs magnesium. So those nutrients are really helpful with histamine breakdown. Also production. So if you have a slow moving bowel and a lot of bacterial overgrowth, usually you're going to see excessive histamine. So making sure that your bowel is moving on a daily basis is going to help that. So that would include not eating foods that are really hard to break down, that You're going to have more carbohydrates that are going to break down earlier on in your intestinal tract that are going to absorb more through the small intestine. So that's going to be primarily the simple carbohydrates. Starches tend to, because they're going to be broken down farther along your digestional tract. And so the tendency is, again, if you are slow moving, if you are hypothyroid, if things aren't moving in the appropriate way, then limit those kind of foods until you get things moving. And then that's also making sure that you're producing ample energy to support that to support metabolism. So that, again, eating enough, taking care of your stress, eating carrot salad, anything that's going to support GI health is going to essentially help lower histamine.
Dangers and benefits of ice baths.
Is
it interesting because they become so popular, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's the whole hormesis thing, right? It's like, because they initiate a slight shock to the system, the whole like give your body some type of stress and it will make it stronger kind of thought process. And it probably can do that on some level. I mean, it's certainly going to lower temporary inflammation on someone, but is it going to like help improve your metabolic rate if we're coming from that context? No, because it's going to kind of do the opposite, right? Like you're slowing everything down. And I think it's the same theories that they've kind of bounced back and forth with it, even with healing. If someone hurt something and they used to do ice baths, now a lot of times they put you in a hot tub, right? Because they want to increase the circulation. But yes, I mean, putting it in ice will decrease inflammation. And I think that's why a lot of people do it. They go and do a fight or they go to a hard workout and they go right into an ice bath. And then they don't have that inflammatory process. The question is that like ideal? Like, you're kind of stopping a function that your body's trying to do. So I just think it's like an open discussion. I don't think we have like tons of good long-term data on these things, right? They're kind of things that people do, and I think they're like super like, makes me stronger. I sit in ice for 5 minutes, right? And it probably does, right? It maybe gives you this mental. It's certainly probably going to increase your adrenaline, so you probably get out and feel like a rock star. But I don't love them.
I was having a chat with, like, I've just got this message group chat. I've got lots of different message group chats with different people. But one with Libby and Craig, and they were talking about how it can inhibit muscle growth, like if you do it too close to training, which is interesting too. So might be good if you're like, competing in the CrossFit Games and you just need to keep backing it up and,
Right.
But if your goal is to actually build muscle, doing it too close can inhibit that. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
And I think most of these things, like, they have these kind of short-term positive reactions, like, oh, I feel better. I feel like I could do another workout. I didn't feel sore. But you're right. The question is, well, did it inhibit something long-term? Is it inhibiting some of your muscle growth, right? Because again, if you worked out hard, the body has a natural response to that. And it might need to go through that process so that you can actually get growth. So if you kind of inhibit that process, you might not be getting as much out of that workout. But yeah, you might be able to train harder. And you're right. Like, if you were to train hard for 6-7 straight days, that might be beneficial for that kind of situation.
There's this lady that I know, and she's in the States, and I've friends with her on Facebook, and she's really lovely, but she's got like Hashimoto's and ADHD, and she doesn't eat enough carbs, does all these ice baths and shit. And like, she always posts stuff about, I had a meltdown today, and I thought, fuck, if you just ate some more fucking food and stop doing these bloody ice baths, and actually, like, she does Orange Theory training and actually train in a better way. I'm like, you could probably fix most of your issues, but yeah.
Well, if you regulate your body, that will just decrease the inflammatory process, right? If you're eating enough and your body's supported, then you won't have such a probably severe response. But yeah, if you're on like keto, high protein, no carbs, doing Orange Theory and doing all this crazy shit, you probably feel better doing all that, right? And then it kind of goes with that whole theory too. So they have kind of these things to help them feel better from all the stress that they're putting upon their bodies.
Yeah, I always want to message her and be like, listen, but I don't.
That's good.
Sometimes she randomly comments on my posts and I think, oh, maybe she's coming around.
Yeah.
But,
or not.
It is just amazing. I was telling Kate about one of my friends that's a vegan, and I helped them. They were under eating, and I helped them. It was quite challenging, actually. Good, interesting challenge. It was good. It's a good challenge for you, Kitty, to create a meal plan with being vegan, trying to hit the macros, and then gave them some sups to buy because they were probably a bit deficient in. We were having the conversation about like retinol versus beta carotene. Like beta carotene, I'm like, no. You need retinol. Like, just take this supplement, all right? Like, give me some of George's.
Would he take it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he ordered it and oysters. And anyway, so interesting. I was messaging Kate because I'd messaged Kate about it. And like 2 or 3 days later, they were like, oh my God, I'm just sleeping better and my energy's back and I'm recovering from training. And I'm like, isn't it fucking amazing when you actually eat it? And start eating breakfast. So he never ate breakfast before. And we'd go and train fasted. And I was just like, it's just incredible, these basic things, it's like life-changing.
Yeah. For sure.
Kate's like, you're preaching to the choir here, sister.
I know. Amen.
And even vegan. I was like, I felt like saying, imagine if you ate some animal products, how much better you'd feel. But, I'm not going to go there. You can't. I know. You can only...
Vegans, I've actually worked with a vegan too. I always said I wouldn't take one on, but this individual would eat dairy. So I was like, okay, if you'll eat dairy, well, we can work out. Yeah. But even when you put, because their protein is all so low. But we actually increased it by using some cheeses and milk, and way more stable. She really had horrible reflux, totally gone, better energy. Yeah. So it's really like, okay, all right, we can do this, right? But yeah, it was all legumes and bread and all that. And she had horrible digestive issues. But now I'm like, okay, just prepare them properly and do it this way and have enough of the other things and make sure your protein's up, and it's so much better.
Crazy. So, and just all those, the fat soluble vitamins as well, the vitamin A, like.
Yeah. Well, if you can get some good milk in, you can get most everything. I mean, the only thing I think you can't get is like iron and maybe some of the B vitamins. I mean, that's why, taking a little liver is good, but they won't do that. Yeah. They're not going to do that ever. Yeah.
But, we've had I'd had some conversations with him, and I was telling him about our nutrition approach. And we say, like, we encourage people to eat like nose to tail, like, eat the liver, eat the organs, eat like, we eat a lot of like the oyster blade and the tougher, like, don't waste any of it. And he's like, oh, that's really good. Like, it's not a wasteful, they didn't die in vain, the animal.
But look, animals, animals will kill each other. We think that's fine. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, so if you just like, and they could overbreed, and they so it's part of the life cycle. I mean, we don't have to get into this, but that's kind of the theory. Like, other animals are going to kill them in a far worse way.
Yeah. Like, obviously you want to, like we always say, support local farmers that treat animals,
totally humanely. Yes.
Yeah.
As long as it's all done humanely, right? But it's kind of part of the cycle. So
anyway, sorry, got a bit off track there.
Yeah.
Thoughts on using nutrition based on blood type dieting? Yeah.
So I read that book. I remember like 15 years ago.
You told me. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, I think, 8 blood types. And I think although the book had like maybe 3 or 4 different diets, all based on, so I think it's way too generalized to think that every person with type A blood should eat a certain way or type what. I think that doesn't make any sense to me, right? There's so many other factors. And I think when we pick one variable and we say we're going to revolve the entire diet around this one variable, around your blood type, doesn't care how much stress you have in your life, doesn't care about your digestive system, doesn't care if you're a man or a woman or your workout, it's only on your blood type. I think that's a little just, it just can't be that simplified. And so, we have to look at everyone's physiology independently, and we can understand physiology, but so many things are changed based on how you're eating. And to just say, and I remember reading that book and go, well, it depends on if you had a really shitty diet prior to any of these diets, any of them would probably make you feel better because they were just real food, at least, right? They cleaned up at things and so forth. So, anytime you come from shit and you something better, you're going to feel a little bit better. Is it the ideal diet? No. I mean, and I just can't believe that everyone, based on these 8 things should only eat this way. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. What kind of physical and emotional changes can a person changing her diet to fix metabolism expect? It's interesting, like just talking about the emotional side.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot, and I think, and even I talk about it with Greta, and I was just telling Kate that I've been doing this emotional work with Greta, And I feel like that, you know, when you're actually eating enough and balancing your blood sugar and you're sleeping and you feel physically like stable, it really allows you then to potentially dig into some of the harder emotional things that you're trying to work through because you have the capacity. I think that's what I think.
100%.
Yeah.
Look, if your blood sugar is all over the place, you will feel erratic, unstable, emotional, right? They go hand in hand. And so when you feel more grounded, because A, you've eaten enough for breakfast, you've had enough protein in your diet, you have enough carbohydrates to keep you going, your blood sugar A is more stable, but you'll feel more grounded. So you're more capable of making better decisions. You're not going to overreact to things. You'll feel just happier. And so there's a lot of factors that go into that. But as your body heals and your digestion heals, right? And digestion is such a root of so many emotions, right? That everything is going to feel better. And I see that many, many times with people that are in certain relationships or jobs or that, you know, but they can't see past a certain space. And as soon as they feel better and they start to heal, all of a sudden now they can actually create space to see these things. And they're like, huh, is this relationship I want? Do I want to change my job? Like now they can actually get out of that survival space, right? We can't make the right decisions when we're in a constant state of survival. It's hard to actually look outside of that. But then as soon as we feel like, okay, now I can grow and expand, now what do I want my life to look like? And that's when we really get, you know, the additional layers start to get peeled and you start to see more and the growth continues. But you need that support. You need that sound support with enough nutrition and enough energy, right? Because if you're not eating right too, you're fatigued, you don't feel good, you're not sleeping well,
Yep.
your hormones are all over the place, you're becoming hypothyroid, you have no, you know, poor digestion, you feel constipated, or you have diarrhea. I mean, all of these are happening. And that alone, just the effects of those will create some level of emotional crisis. But it's just going to make you just not feel right. And so, yeah, I think you expect as you start to stabilize yourself that your emotional state will greatly improve.
Yeah, I think, and one thing I noticed, and I was talking to Greg about this the other day, like if I don't have a good sleep for whatever reason, the next day, like I feel emotional, like things that would usually make me a bit, I'm not sure what the right word is to articulate, wobbly or whatever. I feel, you know, I just know I'm okay. Just need to have a good sleep tonight. And then I wake up and say, okay, I'm good again, you know? So
Totally.
imagine you're trying to, like, you just can't face things. Like you just can't deal with hard things. I think it's much more difficult.
Yeah, you're just emotionally, I think you energetically can't. You don't have the energy, like low metabolism, you're not producing enough energy. So you just can't manage. You're, like I said, you're just trying to figure out, like, get up and go to work and get through your day and deal with things. I mean, you're barely able to, you know, so you feel tired and then you because you're not producing enough energy, then you don't sleep well, right? So then you feel tired and wired, right? And it's just and you're just trying to keep up with everything. You're not able to like stabilize and now respond to things. You're just reacting to everything. And so again, we have to have energy to deal with these things. Like we have to be able to produce energy to deal with these things. And if somewhere along the metabolic process, whether we're not digesting food properly, so then there's not enough there to get through to us, then it's creating GI distress. Then you have increased bacteria and endotoxins and all sorts of problems going on. That process is going to be hindered. And so, yeah, your bottom line, your emotional state is going to improve.
Okay. Do you take aspirin? Yes. Do you?
I do. Yeah.
I've
I've experimented with quite high doses as well.
How high have you ever taken?
2 to 3 grams a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you notice anything?
Well, when I had my little experience when I got really ill from Botox and a lot of other chaos going on in my life, I developed small fiber neuropathy, which is kind of lays low until I get super stressed out. But during that time, the aspirin really helped my system. And I think because it was so stressed, I was probably having increases of estrogen and serotonin. And so taking the aspirin because it's an aromatase inhibitor really helped me, helped me sleep better. It just so, and I've just tried to see how, I mean, I know people have taken 4 to 5 grams to see, because it can have anti-cancer effects. It can help that at that high dose, they've shown to improve insulin improve insulin sensitivity, improve insulin resistance. So it's just, don't take that high dose until you know what you're doing. Because I mean, if your body isn't ready for something like that and you don't know what you're doing, then, high dose aspirin can certainly create some ulcers in the stomach and some other problems. So make sure you kind of know what you're doing. So that's another disclaimer.
I did a podcast with Danny on aspirin. That will probably come out before this one. So people can go back and have a look. Yeah, it'll be a good one to listen to. How to fix insulin resistance. So maybe talk about first, Kate, like what would cause insulin resistance? Is it sugar?
Of course it's sugar. There's a lot of reasons for insulin resistance, but it essentially is your body is, the cells are unable, well, I can't even say they're unable to take up the sugar, but they're either sugar's getting stuck in the cells or something's inhibiting the body's ability to utilize the sugar. So it's staying in the blood. And when that blood sugar gets high, right, it's going to tell insulin to elevate. And if it's not working, insulin keeps elevating to the point where the insulin's just not even working. Blood sugar staying high.
Do you know, Kate, I feel like really simple. This is how I think about it. My simple
Tell
mind.
me.
Is that like you got the cell, right? And then there's insulin's like the little key that unlocks the door and goes, okay, you can go in, glucose. And something's blocking the lock. So the insulin can't unlock the door and let it in.
Right. And so, but sometimes it is getting in and it's just stuck in the cell. So there is that thought process too. But yes, that is the simplest thought process, that insulin is the key. But sometimes it is, the glucose is actually getting in there. It just can't be utilized. So but ultimately it looks like insulin resistant. And it's not the sugar. It's the inability of your body to be able to use the sugar. And that can be coming from endotoxin. So if you have a lot of GI issues and you have a lot of bacterial overgrowth, and that bacteria are producing endotoxin, right? They're endotoxins produced from the bacteria in your GI, and then you have high permeability in the GI, so you're stressed, endotoxin gets into the system. That endotoxin works like a poison towards your cells. That will inhibit your body's ability to produce energy. So we see that high endotoxin in diabetics, obese, fatty liver, right? It essentially is just poisoning everything. And so decreasing that's why sometimes if you work on someone's GI, and that's why people that go on things like carnivore or keto, where you basically move all fibers from your diet, they improve greatly because they don't have that irritation any longer, and their GI basically heals and no more endotoxin. And again, they can lose weight, their fatty liver improves, so forth, so on. I'm not telling you to do that, better ways to do it, but that's what's kind of happening. And the other thing is that high fat in the blood can also inhibit sugar's utilization. And somebody that gets in a high stress cycle, so you have high cortisol basically is telling your body to break down. It's also releasing free fatty acids. When you have high amounts of fat being dumped into your blood from your own body, and then of course, if you eat high carb, high sugar, again, that high fat's going to inhibit sugar oxidation. Sugar is going to stay in the system and produce what you would look at as insulin resistance. So the $1 million question is, how do you fix all that? And it can be complex, but my first answer would always be, well, you need to address your gut. And a lot of times there's gut issues. So how dramatically you want and where you are at that process. If someone is severely diabetic at this point, then I would greatly minimize all starches from their diet, and any grain, starch, fast food, PUFAs, because that can also create some endotoxin, alcohol, estrogen can also increase endotoxin. So you have to address it on a lot of different ways, but addressing your GI health is super important. And depending on your body, and I've seen this with different people, sometimes going really low fat can be quite helpful. And so eating more carbohydrates, and that's going to be the sweet carbohydrates. And again, you're going to have to see how your body responds to this, but it could be sometimes going really low fat helps that person because it kind of pulls the fat down and allows them to utilize the carbohydrates. Other people works the other way. You actually pull the fat up a little bit and you pull their carbs down to, 150 grams. And that tends to work. So you kind of have to experiment. There's no like direct single route.
It's interesting, like we get quite a lot of women come into our program with like type 2 or insulin resistance, and just by doing the basic stuff, like they cut out all the polyunsaturated fats, like stop eating all shit takeaway food, cut out the booze, get adequate protein, like say eat the easy to digest carbs, salt, lower stress, and then they're good. like eat liver, shellfish, like I'm not saying it's just instant, but over the
Yeah.
course of, however many weeks or months, and it
Yeah,
all improves.
totally. And if you continually do it, the key is consistency too, right? If you actually do these things consistently, because your body is being pushed over, and it's not just probably one thing that's creating the insulin resistance, right? It could be a slew of stressful things that are going on in your system, right? You have a high proof of diet, you have a lot of alcohol, right? You're estrogen dominant, you're stressed out, you're not sleeping, right? So all of those can be pushing that stress factor and creating that effect. So if you start improving all of those things, right, then yes, it's all going to create kind of a domino effect to help you. And for some people, depending on which push them over, they can do one or two things and they see a lot of improvement. If they're further on down the road and been doing these things for a lot of time, then it might take a lot more work. But there's no magic pill, there's no magic anything. If you do the basics, like again, work on your sleep, get a better sleep cycle in, right? Eat regularly through the day, get enough protein in, try to eat foods that aren't going to irritate your GI lining, and get rid of the PUFA, alcohol. You'll probably make a lot of progress.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember I did a one on this actually. If people go back and listen, there's 2 podcasts, one with Georgie, I did it on, and one with Isaac, Isaac Pullman, he's got type 1 diabetes, and they mention all those things, and glycine too, collagen as well. Collagen. If you're interested, go back and listen to those podcasts.
Yeah, and some of the B vitamins too, but I think it's like 5-6 grams of glycine a day can help pull blood sugar down, right? There are some supplements that you can certainly take that will have effect, but I don't know if they're necessarily fixing the system, but they're just having a blood sugar lowering effect. In conjunction
with the other stuff, like he also mentioned niacinamide's another good one you could throw in.
Exactly.
If you're doing aspirin, if you're doing basics, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, go back and listen to those podcasts. They're really good. How much time do you like to see between calorie deficits? 250, I don't know if this is a separate part, 250 to 550 calorie cuts.
Yeah, it was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I think the first one depends on the person, I think. The individual.
Yeah. Right. If you're doing a small deficit, sometimes you can go
a long time.
4 or 5 months.
I think it depends on how much fat you've got to lose too. Like a lot of our ladies who are like 40% body fat.
Yep.
They'll just sit in that small 10%, 15% calorie deficit and for a long period of time, and they're fine.
Yep. And I think it depends on, because what I like to look is just other markers. Like, are you sleeping still? Do you feel good? Is your energy good? Like if all those are still good and you're still at that, 10 to 15% deficit, I'll keep you there because you feel good. We know you're still using fat. I'll pay attention to your temperatures and pulse, but as long as, so it's to me, I like to pull them out. Usually if all of a sudden I know they're going to go into a stressful time, I'm like, look, we got to eat. We're going to pull you out. That's time to eat. We got to keep you through it. Right. Or if they just kind of start plateauing and then I pull them out again. But some people that can be 2 or 3 months. Others are like 4 to 6 months almost. If they're still good, everything's good.
And I really think it's like those, because the women that are like, say in our program, who are into the healthier body fat range, like they're, they might be sitting at 26, 27 and they've done a muscle building phase. And then they'll do a cut, like for however long, like that, because they're leaner and less body fat stores. So you just wouldn't, they can't go as long.
That's right.
Yeah. So just so person dependent, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. You can't just be like, do this. And maybe too, they asked about I think maybe they're asking how many calories would you cut? Well, we would look at it as a percentage rather than a calorie amount. So whatever your maintenance calories in, and then it's a percentage reduction of the maintenance calories rather than going, everyone eats 500 calories less.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because obviously the lower your maintenance calories.
Yeah. And I guess maybe they're just saying an average. I guess, but and that's, when you go dramatically, when you see these people do these severe calorie cuts, the body kind of responds quickly to that. And it almost like you get a good drop, but then it's like, you're starving us. Like, we're going to slow this process down. Whereas if you do a more gradually slower process, it allows you to keep going. And then, at some point in time, you have to do a little bit of an increase. And then, but if your body, you just don't want your body to kind of adapt to that process. And that's what those little bumps of increased calories do help, right? And as long as you keep steady with everything else, it will keep going down.
Okay. How how to lose hormonal weight, 40 pounds in a year. I don't think you could, like, I don't know. I think it's the same, like the same process we do with everyone. There's no
Yeah,
specific like hormonal weight, or, you know, you work on improving your health. Yeah, I mean, the ladies in our program, the big ladies that have lost like had lots of ladies 40 pounds plus, and they've had shit cycles, and they've lost weight and they've improved their cycle issues at the same time.
yeah. And I read that and I was kind of like, you know, what does that really mean? Like hormonal weight is like, does that mean you have low thyroid, you have hypothyroidism, or is it you're going through perimenopause and menopause and you've gained significant weight? Because the next question is like, well, what else is different in your life? Is there a lot of stress? Have you changed things? Are you eating differently? Have you,
Are
I
you
mean,
less active?
right.
Yeah. So many women, Kate, like I just feel like women, like, yes, your hormones has to do with it, but I think it's less than you think. And it's more like when I talk to them on calls, I'm like, tell me about what's happened. Oh, I just went through a massively stressful time and I've been drinking more and I've just been eating more because it just feels nice to eat and drink to cope with the stress. I've not been as active, you know, so all these things contribute when they actually start, you know, eating better foods and balancing their blood sugar and doing some more steps and strength training, lowering stress. It's like, I mean, we put everyone through the same process. It's the same, not exactly the same, but, you know, same principles.
The same principles, but again, and that would be like, so yeah, if it was a hormonal weight gain, like were you in a high stress state? So you have like cortisol raging through your system at this point in time, because yeah, as you get older, cortisol is going to start inhibiting your body from utilizing the energy appropriately. And it, you know, that hormone that maybe used to help you get skinny quickly is now helping you get a lot of fat around your belly and back and so forth, because it's also going to drive other hormones like estrogen, even serotonin. They're all going to start elevating too. So to get that under control, yeah, you got to get out of the stress. You got to start regulating your blood sugar, right? You have to do all those basics. There's no magic here. Take this hormone pill. It is trying to figure out your physiology that just occurred in the last year, and then regulating that, and again, then slow and steady weight loss. Like I think everyone
though, like, and I'm not, again, obviously those things do affect it, but women, I said, and so did you track your food this entire time, and were you eating the exact same amount of calories and doing the exact same activity, and then you gained all this weight? And they're like, no, that's never the case ever. So it's
right. And I think, and what I don't like is in the space, especially I feel like menopausal marketing is becoming really big right now, because everyone's like, we're finally being taken care of. They're talking about menopause, but I'm like, yeah, now you're being marketed to like everybody else. And again, it's about, look, let's just understand what's happening to your body. You're going through a change. It's more stressful to your system. So we have to think about that and go, look, you might be a little bit more sensitive to stress now because of what is happening to you. So let's take that into consideration, and let's do all the same principles with understanding that we now have to work into the equation. But there's really not that big of a difference of how you do it. But I feel like now, because again, we do have all these menopausal things talking, and we can do this, and it's also different, and you know, and women are like, see, now you understand me, right? I'm like, but
yeah, but I feel like I say to them, like, listen, because I'm always so, but I say this is good news for you, because it means that you can actually improve this stuff. Like, menopause isn't a disease, and you're not fucked, and you know,
that's right.
You're not like, okay, you have to spend the rest of your life fat and having hot flushes and insomnia and stuff. Like, you
that's right.
really have the power to change this, and it's not that difficult. But I think it just also too takes them a bit longer, like their bodies to respond and change. But you will get there. And I've seen it. Like I did a bloody interview with a client just last week who's in her 50s, who had all these menopausal symptoms, all gone. Her body composition is changing, but it's been slow. But you know, it's happening, and she feels so much better. And she just went through the same process as everyone else, but it's just slower. It's just been slower.
Yeah. I mean, what I think is your life is just caught up to you, and it's happening around a time where you're having these hormonal changes that were happening, but it's like your tipping point. And it just all seems to be happening at that. But, you know, we see it. It does happen to some women at younger years now. It happens at 35 or 40. You know, and so, because women are, the one thing that we are doing is that women are doing everything. They're working, raising children, trying to be everything, and you just can't, right? It becomes too much. And I think that then they stress their system so much, and then when they start to have these hormonal changes, because there is, it just hits them like a ton of bricks. And then they're like, it's the menopause. I'm like, no, it's probably the last 20 years of your life catching up to you. And now it's showing up.
And I think too, it's difficult, you know, like I went to this networking event and there was this lady there. She was so lovely and she was going through like menopause and she was quite overweight and her doctor had got her on antidepressants, HRT, but there she's at the function down in the bloody wine, eating the puffer-laden food, you know, like it's, I think doctors like you have to make these lifestyle changes, which is more difficult, I think, than just taking a pill or it's easy just to take a pill, but we have to fundamentally like look at how we're living and change that. And I mean, I love booze. I'd love to be having some wine every night, but I don't like how it makes me feel. And I know that obviously drinking wine every night isn't going to be great for me. But you know, and making an effort to actually, am I eating enough protein? Am I starting my day with all the things that we talk about? They take effort.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. And the thing is, when you don't feel well and you don't feel good about yourself, I mean, there's a lot of empathy that goes out because it drags on you, right? And you're trying to fight this thing that you think is creating now this feeling within you, when it's like, look, you have some power here and we can change it. But if you've been living your whole life, you know, kind of like stressed and go, and, you know, I could just drop my calories and things fell off of me and now that's not happening, you're like, it's menopause. And I'm like, right? I'm like, you know, I go, look, what you have done your last 20 or 30 years has created this physiological body that you're in now. And now we have to try to unwind that. So now we have to level you out. Now we have to try to build things back up. And yeah, it's a little bit more challenging when you're 50 than when you're 20, right? But it all takes a change. And that can be the challenging part with people, especially if they're very used to getting quick results. It's like, look, we've got to kind of change everything. And you are more like, you could be more glucose sensitive at this point, meaning you don't tolerate it as well. And if you still don't change your life and you're still trying to keep up with the craziness that you created, that's going to be challenging. And so you have to kind of open your eyes and go, look, we've got to change some things. We've got to create a healing environment for you. And what does that look like?
But like we say, the good news is like, it's empowering to know that you can change it.
That's right.
You don't have to do crazy stuff like eat a shit ton of green vegetables and cut out all sugar and carbs and all the stuff that, you know, menopause people tell you that you need to do.
Yes. Yeah. Right. With an understanding that you could be more glucose intolerant. And if that is the case, then you have to make sure that you address that. And a lot of times what I always like, we got to look at your gut and see how well that's working. Because sometimes if you fix that and clean that up, that you will tolerate sugars better.
But then again, too, like when you talk about like new people here, they think about like, you know, people come to me and they're on these gut fucking healing protocols and they're eating a fuck ton of green vegetable. Like it's not what you think it is. I think like when I used to typically think gut, you know, improving my gut health, they're blown away by the suggestion of eating, you know, like fruits and juice and, you know, like collagen. Yeah. You know, anyway, that's another bloody...
Right. Well, I think most people come from that perspective. They're trying to fiber you up to try to push everything down, right? Like we just need to fiber you up. We'll have more fiber and bulk and that will help clean up your goal.
Yeah. Get on the bloody fermented foods.
Yeah. But look, if your GI is under energized, it's not getting blood flow because again, your digestive system works in that parasympathetic state. And if you are in that sympathetic state all the time, blood flow goes away from your GI system. It just doesn't work, right? Your literally nervous system says, shut it down. So that is going to be compromised. So you have to get out of that space, right? Your digestive system is this one big long muscle and it needs energy to function. And if it's not getting it, then yeah, putting a bunch of bulky crap in there will kind of sort of help it. It's better than eating PUFAs and fast food all day long. But ultimately, it's not going to fix it. Right? We have to get it energized. And the best way to do it is give it calories that are easily digestible and absorbable up in the first part of the intestinal area, which are going to be those easy to digest carbohydrates.
All right. All right. Nutrition advice for those in perimenopause and menopause. I think we should just say, Kate and I have done 2 podcasts on this dedicated to perimenopause and menopause already. So I would say to people, go back and listen to them because we talk about the nutrition in those. Yeah,
but I think it would just kind of relays onto that last question. It's the same kind of thing. I go, look, you have to rethink, and you have to have these conversations because because we're being marketed to right now, they're made you thinking that now this is this time and we've got to address it, that nobody's ever talked about menopause. We're going to talk about it now. And it's this, now we have to change everything and you got to go keto and you got to intermittent or whatever. No, you got to still do all the basics, knowing that it might be catching up to you. But yes, there is a hormonal shift and that's absolutely happening. But if you support your system, like we've been talking about, and do all the things and work on your sleep and maybe add some other things in there that can help regulate your blood sugar, like we've talked about, then that's going to be a good start for you.
Yeah. And go back and listen to those podcasts. They're really good. There's two.
Those will help you.
And then there's one with Ray as well, where he talks a lot about like menopause. I think he talks a bit about menopause. Yeah.
Yes. That was a good one too.
Thoughts on Mindy Pell's fast like a girl approach? I've never heard of that.
I haven't either. I did Google that. So I listened to a few of her podcasts, and all I gotta say is, look, I don't want to talk poorly about someone, but a lot of what she says doesn't make any sense, and I want to go into the depths of but basically it sounds like her philosophy is she's wants to teach women to fast in the first part of your cycle. When estrogen's high, she's like, that's the time when you should just long fast. And then when you're around your ovulation, then the fast should get a little bit less. And then when progesterone's high, you should have more carbohydrates. That was kind of the premise of it all. So look, fasting makes people feel better for two reasons. Low gut irritants. You're not eating anything. So a lot of people that have a really irritated GI, and just like we talked about before, they can have bacterial load and endotoxins, all that will create havoc in your system. If you don't eat, guess what? That all decreases. So people will feel better when they do a fast. The other thing a fast is, it usually comes with a calorie deficit. You're just not eating as much food, right? So when they do these studies and they show where they fast and they lost weight, but usually if they do a study with fasting and then just people on a calorie deficit, they show usually equal amounts of weight loss, same thing. So there's no really difference there. There's no magic with fasting, right? We can use words like autophagy and go, well, it's helping your cells clean up, and they break down and they clean up. And I'm like, look, your cells are doing that all the time. Like you don't have to fast to have autophagy going on. And it happens while you're sleeping, right? And I remember listening to Jay Feldman once, and he made this comment, and I go, that's really a perfect comment, right? It's like trying to fast to increase autophagy is like going and messing up your room so you can clean it up more, right? It's like breaking more stuff down so you can get more cleanup factors, right? It just doesn't make sense. Your body is naturally doing it. So if can fasting offer some benefits to people? Yes. And if when you fast, you probably don't stress the crap out of yourself and you're pretty healthy and you feel good doing that, go for it. Right. I mean, I'm not completely against it, because I think some people just like the fact of like, I just don't eat for a day and it's easier for me and I do better when I fast. I'm like, okay.
You know what I think though, Kate, like what I don't like about fasting is that there's no, like maybe if women actually like tracked their calories and made sure they had enough protein and they were getting enough of the right nutrients, let's just say, for example, they were like, look, it just really works for me because I'm busy in the morning and I do better and I just start eating at 10. But I still make sure I get enough calories in the day. I'm hitting my protein targets. But no one does that. They just go, fuck, I'm just going to fast. And then, and then I think too, women are so stressed these days, more stressed than, back in the caveman days.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good point, because I think she kind of, and she talks about this in her podcast. Well, it's a little bit different what if you're not having your cycle? And she's just like, oh, you just kind of do the same things, just kind of mimic the ways of your cycle. And I'm like, women today are so stressed, right? And now, again, this is all coming from, where are you coming from, right? If you are eating a shit diet and all of a sudden you start fasting and you lose a little weight, and maybe that helps you regulate your, and lose a little body fat, yeah, you're going to get some benefits from that for sure. And for some people that don't, it's easy for them. They're like, I just don't eat, right? That's really easy. And then I just eat in a window, right? And they find like, well, I can just kind of, so they do get some benefit. Is that the optimal way to manage things? And do I think that women should be fasting? No, I actually don't. If you are really healthy and you want to, but there's better ways to accomplish things, right? When you don't fast for a certain amount of time, it's going to initiate a stress response in your system. If you don't fast for 2 days, you're not eating, how do you think your body's fueling itself?
Yeah.
It has to, it constantly needs fuel all the time. And you don't store enough glycogen, stored glucose, to keep you more than 8 to 10 hours. So you will be eating some body fat, that is true, but you're also going to be burning some muscle tissue, connective tissue, and so forth. So that does happen. And so, or you'll probably have some ketones being produced and so forth, because that was the other thing that this woman was promoting, was go into, do keto for a while. And so, look, I have just found long-term, especially women in perimenopause and menopause, that is not a good way to go. You need to be more supported at this point in time. Your body's going through changes. You're stressed out. We need to keep you regulating and kind of eating to that way. Long-term, maybe short-term, you might see some benefit. Long-term is not going to be a good decision for you.
And I think if your life is so fucking hectic that you can't stop for 10 minutes to eat some breakfast, I'm like, I think there's other things that need to change. If you're like, I just literally cannot stop to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
and some people can't. Like, I talk to some people and I'm like, I don't know how you do it. You have 3 or 4 kids, you're like homeschooling and you're like a job on the side and you're doing that. I'm like, whew, and it's a lot. And I feel these women that have so much going on. So, it's just like, look, we're just going to take little steps. Like, what can we manage, and because then when you get someone feeling a little bit better, then they can manage a little bit more. But I'm like, look, this is baby steps. But if your life is chaos, we gotta like
try and
stop the chaos.
I just think though too, if your life is busy, you're going to be better if you're fueled. Like, you're going to cope.
100%.
And there's just you can always, I remember when we worked in the gym and we'd have really early mornings, I'd even just blend a shake. Like, I'd have milk, raw egg, collagen, honey, banana, coffee, and I would just blend that and put it in the fridge. And I would just, I mean, it wasn't that amazing flavor, but I would just grab it on the way out, drink it.
Yep. Yeah, you can make a smoothie in 2 minutes, and a good one, and tons of nutrients in it, right? Quick. So, and certainly in a pinch, I'm like smoothie. Oh, I just made you sneeze.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Not that I really I don't really enjoy smoothies for breakfast. I'm into the sourdough muffins. I'm really addicted at the moment to sourdough crumpets, one with egg and cheese, with a slice of Gouda cheese and a fried egg and a bit of butter, and the other one with butter and jam. Oh, it's incredible.
Look at you.
Juice, I have juice as well, coffee with milk, collagen. Yeah. It's like 850 calories. It's like a stellar, solid breakfast.
I know.
So good.
I mean, some women, that's all they eat all day.
Yeah. I'm so hungry now, and it's 8:45. Okay. Next one, I've got another podcast at 9, so we better. I love milk. Milk is amazing for us, but when I drink 5 to 6 glasses of it per day, I have to pee more. What gives?
I would have to really see what the rest of the diet looks like.
Yeah.
And is like that the only variable that's going on, right? I mean, so normally just milk drinking shouldn't technically, it's certainly more liquid, but your body's using a lot of that nutrition, right? So for a lot of people, if your system's working, you won't pee that much more. But certainly if you have a lot of other liquid in your diet, I don't know, right? I would have to kind of assess what else is going on with you. And I'm like, because my other question would be, well, what are you doing all day long? Like, is that even enough calories? Are you stressed out? Stress in itself can increase histamine. Histamine can irritate the bladder. That can make you pee all day, right? So there's a lot of reasons why someone might be peeing all day. And it could be just an increase in histamine.
Okay. In fat loss, do calories matter more than macros, or do they both matter? Well, calories, I would say calories, and then protein.
Yeah, that's a check. So
the calories, obviously, like in weight loss.
Depends on where you're coming from, right? So calories do matter. Like, people that say calories don't matter are crazy. But yeah, you can't just eat an unlimited amount of calories and think that I'm going to lose weight. But at the same time, coming from a place of trying to improve metabolic rate, you're trying to improve your body's ability to produce energy, right? That's the goal, is to convert your food into energy, and that energy will run your system. And when that's running well, you will naturally, your body doesn't want to be heavy. So if all things are working well, the body will start letting go of body fat. And that's why you see, when you kind of look at these really crazy diets, like and I know we've talked about this before, but the milk cure, where they consumed literally like 3,000 calories of pure milk and laid in a bed all day long, and people would lose 20, 30 pounds, like tons of weight, doing nothing, because they were starting to produce and utilize the energy to heal. Like, to heal a body takes a considerable amount of energy, but we're so busy using it all for everything else that we're doing in our life, it just doesn't go there. And so we always stay in dysfunction. So that's why I'm like, the calories in, calories out is part of the conversation.
I feel like this needs to be said, though. We've talked about this before, like, because so many people come into this world and then they just eat all of the food and gain all of this weight, and they don't track their calories, and then go, like some people say, don't track, just eat the food. And I think that's a bit misleading, because I think a lot of women, because we don't say that, like, we've done podcasts on it, like the tracking, that's why the tracking is really important. But I think some women come in and they're like, oh, they told me not to track my calories, and I just started eating all this ice cream and full fat dairy and like heaps of fat and carbs together, excess calories, and they gained a ton of weight.
Yeah, well, again, you're trying to, and I can sort of understand that philosophy, because again, you're trying to improve your body's ability to convert that food into energy, right? It's not just you can eat a bunch of food and all of a sudden you have a high metabolic rate. That's not how it works.
Weight just drops off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not that you can't eat, like, people think, I'll just eat more food, my metabolism's going to improve like immediately, and that's going to create my ability to burn off more. But look, your body still has to convert the energy in food into energy for yourself. And if your metabolism is not working optimally, it's probably having a trouble doing that. So just to all of a sudden eat a ton more calories in a system that isn't working optimally is just going to result in weight gain. And so you have to be, that's why tracking is good. You still have to consider calories, but as your body starts to heal and things start to improve, you will be able to convert those calories into fuel better. And that's when you'll see improvements in temperature and pulse and all these things, because now your body's using the energy it's creating to make you feel better and have you sleep and do your workouts and build muscle and all that, versus just storing it. But again, you have to make sure that if your gut's all messed up and you start eating a ton of calories, well, you're still going to have a ton of problems. It's going to gain a ton of weight. So they're both important, I think, because also if you try to put someone in a deficit, I would say calories are probably more important, but if you give someone an entirely 100% carbohydrate diet, they probably won't feel as good. They're not going to feel as grounded. So macros will play a role, certainly. And of course, if someone's in a deficit, you can pull their protein up, because it does take more energy to break protein down and use it as fuel. However, you don't want to do that all the time. So you want to kind of take that in consideration, right? We burn about 30% of the calories when we use protein as energy, but you don't want to primarily use protein as energy, but you can use it as a tool when you definitely start to pull someone's calories down.
All right, last question. Asian countries use seed oils but don't have the same health issues as USA or UK. Why is this? It's a bit of a...
So I think China uses more like lard and animal fats, like beef fat. I think Japan, I haven't studied these cultures and exactly. I do think that they do use some seed oils. Now, to what degree do they use them? Like, I don't think that they're eating McDonald's and crackers and processed foods, right? There's probably a tipping point to all of this. It's not to say that their health issues aren't increasing in areas like Japan and some of these Asian cultures, because they are, like the rest of the world. But I think because we probably eat in excess and we eat hypopha and we have a lot. So there's never one thing that's creating all the problems, right? I think a lot of the spotlights on seed oils right now, and they're like, oh, it's seed oil. Seed oil is causing all the problems. I'm like, no, it's not just one thing. There is a slew of things out there that are creating health issues in our country.
And weight gain.
And yeah, exactly. Weight gain.
I used to eat a heap of pupas, but I was skinny because I starved myself.
Exactly. Ditto, right? I was eating nuts and seeds all day. Right. So it wasn't good for us, but we certainly weren't overweight.
Right.
So you can certainly do that. But again, is it creating other problems? And again, I'd have to kind of dive deeply into their cultures and see, because they have issues too. There are certain areas in Japan that do live a longer life, but I don't think they're eating like tons of seed oils, right? They're eating like sweet potatoes and fresh fish. But again, I don't specifically know, but I do think there is some toward tipping point. I don't think that's the only variable. I think there's probably 50, 60, 70 variables that we could consider, certainly in the United States and UK, that are affecting everybody's health. And that's why we'll never pinpoint it, and because no one's ever going to do a study, and it's impossible to do a study to kind of put all these variables and say, okay, we're going to just look at these things and see if it's what this is contributing, right? We're just going to look at drug usage and see what that's alcohol usage, right? Fast food, whatnot. But that would kind of be my, but yeah, it's certainly probably not helping them, but they have other things that are probably healthier than us. I think one of the longest living cultures overall is in Hong Kong. But I think the main variable for that is they have really good healthcare and it's really cheap. And so that's available because, right, we take the mean average of everybody. So people can live longer with better healthcare.
Cool.
There you have it.
Well, that was
all right.
Timing.
Yeah.
And as always, guys, take a screenshot and share your biggest takeaways on Instagram stories and tag me at kittyblomfield, KITTYBLOMFIELD. Tag Kate as well. And share your biggest takeaways. And each month I pick a winner and they get a tub of Saturée premium collagen valued at $79. We'll be back again next week.